Welcome to the Projectile Speed Olympics. For this video, I measured two things. First of all, I measured the range of every brawler to see how far away they can actually hit a target. Next, I measured how long it took for the projectile to appear, travel to the enemy, and actually deal damage to them. This gives us a measurement of projectile speed in tiles per second. One example where this is useful is comparing Piper to Brock. They both have a similar range, but as you can see, Piper's projectile is much faster, meaning that you don't have to lead her shots as much as when you're playing with Brock. One interesting thing to note is the fact that some brawlers' projectiles actually start very far away like Bees do, whereas other brawlers start really close to the brawler like Nani. Additionally, some brawlers have projectiles that are much larger than others like Pam and Surge. Because of this, some of the projectile speed measurements might not actually be exactly what you expect. We're going to start with the brawlers with the slowest projectile speeds in the game and work our way up to the brawlers with the fastest projectile speeds. I'm going to show multiple brawlers together in groups, and your goal is to guess which one has the fastest projectile speed of their group. But first, I wanted to give a big thank you to Darkfire Heroes for sponsoring this video. This game is a crazy epic RPG that you'll want to try out. Now the game just barely launched, guys, and as you can see, you can get a special bonus on your first 7 days of playing by clicking on the link below. It's completely free on iOS and Android, so you're not going to want to miss out. The game features tons of heroes that all have their own special ability that you can use to destroy hordes of enemies. Plus, there are varying spells that are either offensive or that you can use to support your heroes. There are so many different combinations that you'll learn only by downloading the game and trying it out. Just take a look at all these heroes. We've got tanks, supporters, damage dealers, and healers, and they all belong to one of 6 different elements. And you'll need to try a lot of them because Darkfire Heroes has a ton of content. Not only does Darkfire Heroes have an absolutely massive campaign, they have multiple PvP modes, which can get pretty crazy. But my favorite part of Darkfire Heroes are the epic boss battles. Don't forget the new player bonuses, so click below, and like I said, it's free to play on iOS and Android. Darkfire Heroes, thanks again for sponsoring this video. Starting up, we have the 3 brawlers with the slowest projectile speeds in the game, Barley, Dynamite, and Tick. And I want you to guess which has the fastest of these 3 throwers. Now, I've slowed this footage down to 50% speed so you can actually see the difference a little bit easier. It's pretty easy to see that Dynamite beats both Tick and Barley, which is kind of surprising because there's actually a little delay before his attack explodes. He comes in 45th with a speed of 7.9 tiles per second. Now, it's tough to tell whether Tick or Barley has the faster projectile speed because they're actually really similar. Barley barely takes dead last at 7.2 tiles per second, and Tick only measures 0.1 tiles seconds faster than Barley, which is actually just small enough difference. It could even just be a rounding error, so keep that in mind. Up next, I want to know who you think will win between Ems, Spike, and Sprout. At first, it looks like Ems has the fastest projectile speed, but then her cloud of hairspray actually slows down significantly before reaching its maximum range. She ends up taking 44th place. As for which brawler wins, it's a really close call between Spike and Sprout. If you slow it down a lot, you'll notice that Sprout's attack explodes in a large radius while Spike's projectile isn't quite there yet. Spike takes 43rd and Sprout takes 42nd. Now I want to know who you think has the fastest projectile speed between Carl with his power throw star power, Gale, and Poco. Even with his star power that increases throw speed, Carl barely loses out of the 3, though it's actually really close to Poco's projectile speed. Gale wins out of the 3 with a speed of 11.6 tiles per second. Next we have Bull, Jesse, and Nita. By the way, we're actually slowing the gameplay down even more to 40% speed to make things even clearer. Because Bull has such a short range, it's kind of tough to tell which brawler wins out of the 3. It's pretty clear that Nita has the slowest between the 3, and she takes 38th place. Taking 37th is actually Jesse, and Bull takes 36th with a projectile speed of 12.5 seconds. Next is a 4-way matchup between Daryl, Gene, Penny, and Squeak, and I want to know who you think is going to win. You don't even have to slow this gameplay down a ton to see that Squeak wins out of the 3. Technically, he'd actually have the slowest projectile speed because I measure from when he fires to when the enemy takes damage, and Squeak's attack has a long delay after it lands before it actually explodes to deal that damage. So I actually made an exception for Squeak and stopped the clock once the projectile reached max distance. He wins 32nd with a projectile speed of 12.8 tiles per second. And as for the other 3 brawlers, Penny lands 33rd place behind Squeak, and Daryl and Gene actually tie for 34th place. Up next is a competition between Bo. Yeah, that's right. Bo didn't really fit anywhere else, so he gets his own competition for 31st place. He has a projectile speed of 12.9 tiles per second, so congratulations, you get a free point. If you're enjoying this video, consider subscribing for future Brawl Stars content. You can also check out the Range Olympics video and other Olympics videos by clicking on that video after you watch this one. We've still got more to cover right here. Let's get into it. Next is a 4-way competition between Brock, Crow, Mr. P, and Tara. This is actually a really interesting matchup because all 4 brawlers actually tie with each other for 27th place with a projectile speed of 13.3 tiles per second. It looks like Brock has a slightly faster projectile speed, but his projectile actually starts out almost half a tile further than the other projectiles. Over the course of the attacks, the other projectiles catch up, which I'll be the first to admit that this is proof that this test isn't the most consistent. With that said, this test does take into consideration the very moment that the attack is actually fired and the very moment that the enemy actually takes damage, so I still think this test is beneficial. Up next is a matchup between Amber, B, Leon, and Nani. To start, the first 2 projectiles fired by Amber actually hit the wall before they can get to Frank, so I had to measure the 3rd flame that she fired. So that's actually why Amber's looks like she got a little bit of a head start to the others. All 4 of these brawlers' projectiles actually look like they have nearly identical projectile speeds. It's close enough that I'll give you a point no matter who you choose, but here's the correct order. B takes 26th, Nani takes 25th, and Leon and Amber tie for 23rd at 13.8 tiles per second. Next, you need to guess whether Colonel Ruffs, Rico, or Surge has a faster projectile speed. It looks like Colonel Ruffs' projectile speed is very slightly faster than the other 2 because his projectile starts out further than them. However, Surge's larger projectile actually damages Frank a split second faster, and he wins out of the 3. Colonel Ruffs takes 22nd, Rico takes 21st, and Surge takes 20th with a projectile speed of 15 tiles per second. Up next is an incredibly close match between Byron, Sandy, and Stu. I say this is incredibly close because the difference between all 3 of these is within 0.2 tiles per second. Technically, my measurements say that Sandy takes 19th, Byron takes 18th, and Stu wins out of the 3, but I'm not actually confident that this isn't just because of rounding errors, so I'm going to give you guys a point no matter which brawler you selected. They all have a projectile speed of about 16 tiles per second. Next is an even closer matchup between Belle and Lou. I say it's close because they actually tie for 15th with a projectile speed of 16.4 tiles per second. I wanted to mention that although Belle doesn't have the fastest projectile speed out of all of the snipers, her projectile speed is close to Piper's, who we haven't shown yet, but who does have the fastest sniper projectile speed. We'll show her later though. Next is another free point because it's a tie between El Primo and Max for 13th place. Now El Primo's measurement might be off because his range is so short. In fact, we're about to see a lot of short range brawlers actually have a really fast projectile speed. According to my measurements, both Max and El Primo measure out to be 18.7 tiles per second. Up next is not a tie between Edgar and Shelly. Interestingly enough, Shelly actually hits her maximum range in the same amount of time with or without her Clay Pigeons gadget. So her gadget is actually a big buff to her projectile speed. However, Edgar actually ends up beating her by almost an entire tile per second with a projectile speed of 17.8 tiles per second. Once again, Edgar has a super short range, so take this with a grain of salt, but he takes 11th and Shelly takes 12th place. We are down to the top 10 brawlers with the fastest projectile speed. Now, in order to show the difference, I'm going to slow things down to 1/3 the normal speed. Do you have any idea which brawler gets first? By the way, you can support the development of future videos like this one if you like the Brawl Olympics by using code Kairos in the Brawl Stars shop.
KAIROS, code Kairos in the Brawl Stars shop.
Next is between Colette and Pam. They both actually have the same range, but who do you think has the faster projectile speed? This matchup is super close. At first glance, it looks like these brawlers have the same projectile speed. If you take a closer look, you'll come to the conclusion that they indeed have the same projectile speed. They tie for 9th place with a projectile speed of 18 tiles per second. Next, we have Piper and Colt, who's using his Magnum Special star power to increase projectile speed. Interestingly enough, both Colt and Piper have the same range when Colt is using this star power, and you'd actually already know this if you watched my Attack Range Olympics video. Both Colt and Piper have the same projectile speed too. It looks like Colt's projectiles travel a little bit faster. That's just because Piper's projectile is huge and it starts out much further than Colt's. If you fire Colt's and Piper's attacks at the exact split second, they'll hit the target at max range at the exact same split second as well. So they tie for 7th place. Okay, next we have 8-Bit and Frank, and we're pretty much done with ties. Frank has a long windup before he attacks. If I included that windup, he'd be one of the worst brawlers for this test. However, I excluded the windup because we're only really measuring the speed of his projectiles. 8-bit's projectiles are still faster at 20 tiles per second, so he takes 5th and Frank takes 6th. Next we have Rosa and Mortis with his Coiled Snake star power, both of which have really short ranges, so I want to know who you think is going to be faster between the two. This one is really tricky to tell because Mortis literally is his projectile. Also, they both have super short ranges, which makes the measurements a little bit less reliable. However, Mortis takes 4th at 21.3 tiles per second, and Rosa takes 3rd place at 23.5 tiles per second. And now we are down to the final two brawlers, BB and Jackie. Remember that just like with Frank, the delay before BB actually attacks is not included. So which do you think is going to be faster? Let's see what happens. Okay, that was really close. Let's slow it down to 10% speed and see what we can find out. As you can see, both Jackie and BB's projectiles instantly hit the enemy in range the very instant that their projectile is fired. Because speed is a measurement of distance traveled over time, and the projectiles reach their destination in 0.0 seconds, both BB and Jackie technically tie for first place with a projectile speed of infinite tiles per second. This is truly a first in the history of the Brawl Stars Olympics. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and I'm really curious to know which brawlers surprised you, or if you were able to accurately guess each of the winners of this round. If you were, you're a Brawl Stars master, congratulations. Or you cheated and used code Kairos in the Brawl Stars shop. If you guys want to watch more Brawl Stars Olympics videos, you can check out a playlist right here. Make sure you subscribe before you do that though, that's right over here. And don't forget to use code Kairos in the Brawl Stars shop. I think that's the 3rd time I plugged that in this video. We're just gonna run with it. For now, this is KairosTime ticking by, and we will see you in Brawl Stars.